Welcome to the Real Estate Pros Show, where we interview real estate investing professionals from coast to coast, as well as the service providers that serve the real estate investing industry. Our goal is simple: share what's working now to help you improve and scale your business to the next level and meet the pros that can help you get there. Real Estate Pros is powered by Investor Fuel, America's leader in helping real estate investors and professionals build the business you need to live the life you've always dreamed of. Let's start today's show. Property insurance for real estate investors doesn't have to be difficult, but it does need to be there to protect you when you need it. MyInvestorInsurance.com not only provides insurance at 15 to 30% cheaper than traditional agencies, it's built specifically for real estate investors like you. You can set up an account in about 2 minutes, get quotes on properties, turn on and turn off insurance for your fix and flip or rental properties in around 2 minutes without having to talk to anyone directly, all through our portal. There's no better way or faster way to make sure you've got the coverage you need to protect you, and no more lengthy policies either. Once you're set up, you're billed monthly and prorated by the day for however long your policy is active. It's powered by MSI, the third largest independent MGA, with 1.5 million customers and more than $1 billion in cumulative premiums written. Get set up today in about 2 minutes at myinvestorinsurance.com/fuel.
Hey folks, welcome back to the show. I'm your host, Dylan Silver, and today on the show I have Brendan Thompson, real estate investor, entrepreneur out of Houston, Texas. Brendan, welcome to the show.
Thanks for welcoming me. And literally before we got on, I told you that there was going to be stuff in the background, and one of my 4 kids decided to walk in. So
It's okay. It's okay. People are allowed to have kids. I've had it happen on the podcast. People coming into the podcast studio. So the more the merrier here. But Brendan, tell us, how did you get into the real estate space? Was it in your blood?
I think I discovered that it was. I didn't know this until maybe 3 years ago. I had never touched real estate before except for our primary home. And the way I got into this was rather interesting. I was a full-time missionary trainer. So I worked with churches and kind of worked in the nonprofit world. That was my background. And I met a guy who was really into short-term rentals and Airbnbs. And I just thought he was crazy. And eventually he convinced me through a series of circumstances to join him in this effort to kind of create a software in that space. Okay. So my first actual foray into real estate was building software for real estate investors when I myself was not one.
Wow.
As I got into the software and I started to learn more about what he was doing, I just said, man, this is life-changing. If it's changing other people's lives, why isn't it changing mine? And that's when I began to take the steps to get my first rental properties and begin the short-term rental. Really, the short-term rental side is where I focus, but we're kind of open and do all of it at this point.
So at that point in time, when you're getting into the idea of being a real estate entrepreneur, what was your day-to-day like? You mentioned software. Was that your background, where you came from?
No, it was kind of a just roundabout story how I got here. I was always, when you work with missionaries and you work in that context, you're working with people that go overseas and they do crazy things in crazy places. And you have to have a little bit of an appetite for risk to do that.
Yeah.
And I think I discovered something in the midst of COVID, like many people were shifting jobs and kind of exploring different things, is I began to do different little side businesses, really just as an opportunity to, sorry, telling the kids to be quiet there. I think what I learned about myself was that I really loved new things, and I really loved starting. And I really loved kind of investing in a new idea and kind of getting it off the ground. And so I kind of found a niche doing that on a few different things. So I had some, little businesses that we started. We had a Christmas light company that we ran and kind of got to sell that, which was really great. And he approached me because he kind of saw some of that experience, and he said, "Hey, I want to start this. Can you help?" And, I had not had any software experience, but I did work on a small kind of digital startup. So I had some understanding about how to run something like that. And we ended up going for starting the software together, and he brought me in as an equity partner. And then the rest was history. I started working on that with him. And so kind of a roundabout way to get into the real estate world, but here we are.
That's how it happens. And I think that people who are risk adverse many times find real estate highly risky, but also highly attractive. And so you look at it, you're like, well, I don't necessarily want to have all my money in Wall Street. So what else can I do? Let me try this real estate thing. And then you have other people who are just literally, I've had someone who was a skydiving instructor, and he took that and he said, I'm going to use kind of this.
Stop living on an island and join the #1 mastermind in America for professional real estate investors. Investor Fuel is a community of hundreds of the nation's top investors working together to build stronger businesses and better lives. In addition to the amazing community of real estate investors acting as a board of advisors for one another, Investor Fuel members have access to 100% funding on purchase and repairs for our members only, a health insurance program, and benefits and discounts that more than pays for the membership of most of our members, meaning it's actually costing you money to not be a member of Investor Fuel. If you're looking to scale your business and build a business that allows you to live the life of your dreams, please visit investorfuel.com today and book a call with our team.
Thrill seeking, and let me do this in real estate in a way. And so, it's amazing that you can have those two types of avatars in the same space, but you do see it,
I've gone skydiving twice. I didn't like it the first time. And then I realized that, I'll try anything twice, and tried it a second time. And the fear that I had skydiving the first time was only amplified the second time. So it was not a great experience. I thought maybe, you take a swig of something, you're like, that's new and interesting. Maybe I'll try it again to see if I like it. Not the case for me. Skydiving
You're saying jumping out of a plane is not for everybody.
Not for everybody. He can keep that, he can keep that domain.
Okay, so Missionary, you have the software company.
Right.
Break that down for us here, because of course now 2025 we have so much AI. It sounds like this was in the latter part of the 2010 2020, that time period there.
Right.
AI was maybe a thing, but not as mainstream as it is today. So it sounds like a lot of intensive work integrating with software developers, so on and so forth, in the short-term rental space.
Yeah, so it focused primarily on underwriting. And so when our CEO of this company, it's called STRIQ, like short-term rental intelligence. And when he came to me about it, he said, hey, look, people that are investing in short-term rentals, and rates are changing. It's getting harder and harder to find profitable properties. So how do we underwrite these in a way to know if they're profitable and give it as a tool to short-term rental investors? And it was a lot of work. We had to gather information. There's some data sources people generally trust to underwrite and say that's going to make X amount of dollars for me. Then you got to, put in your expenses. And then there's some of the negotiating on your deal terms. Are you buying it outright? Do you have leverage? Those kinds of things. And putting all that together in one spot so that people can actually shop cash on cash rather than going to Zillow, finding something, and then running it into your spreadsheets and then having to do that over and over and over again. What if you could just see a map that showed you green bubbles that said, here's a high performing potential property for you, and it already has your buy box. So that I actually learned to underwrite before I learned to operate short-term rentals. So I went in, I think that was the right order, because getting our first rental, I didn't know what I was doing, but thankfully making this software alongside my buddy taught me how to get good properties from the outset.
This is interesting. I've actually, maybe the first guest that I've had that took a similar path in a way to the path that I have, because I went from selling cars, I've said this on other podcasts, no idea about anything related to real estate. Like it wasn't even on my radar, to then thinking, okay, well, I'm spending 12 hours a day, sometimes 14 hours a day here, 6 days a week, and I really don't have anything to show for other than money in the bank, and I don't even know what to do with this. Where do I go from here? And then seeing people buying real estate, and I remember thinking, like, this is too much of a risk for me. I have no idea how this would even work. I'm going to lose the money. I'm going to end up in debt. So I ended up switching careers to learn about real estate. I was like, I'll make less money, but I need to learn about real estate. And so that's what I did. And I'm now a year and a half into the journey here. taking me a little bit longer than I would like to, but I'm still waiting to get some
Right.
deeds in my name or an LLC that I own. But having done, 20 wholesale deals thereabout, I have this podcast that I co-host, and then I have my real estate license. So I see like it's building. And in a sense,
Right.
you had a similar, of course not the same, but a similar path, because it wasn't like you went in thinking like, I'm just going to buy a bunch of properties at the gate. You actually learned the analytics before you had that experience of being a landlord.
If you're looking for consistent, high-quality leads, look no further than Investor Machine. Investor Machine isn't just another agency. It's the most sophisticated, data-driven lead generation company on the planet for real estate investors, and serves the role of being not just a lead generator for your business, but a marketing partner that is helping you achieve your goals along the way. Go to investormachine.com to learn more and schedule a call with our team today.
Yeah, I think it really set us up for success, because something I've observed just now that I've been in it for a few years is that a lot of people get in, they have rose-colored glasses and they get into at least short-term rentals, and they think, oh, this property is going to make me a lot of money. People, Airbnb is hot right now. And so they go and buy something and they don't do their homework. And so they end up upside down on a mortgage. And we have friends that's their story right now, is they're kind of upside down on a mortgage and they don't know what to do about it. And we never wanted to be in that situation. And, coming out of, I don't know what you think about the nonprofit world, but you don't usually make a ton of money. So, it was all the more important for us to make sure that we could cover our bases and not get a bad egg. And, you can do all your homework and things can still go sideways. And so we just felt like the most important thing was to do everything diligently. And the things we could control, let's factor those in.
So let's talk about scaling within the STR company. So you're in that space. Did the company end up selling at a certain point in time?
No, they're still operating right now. It's still going strong. People can still use it. I'm not as actively involved, but people can still do that. Yeah.
Okay, and so your role with them, I'm imagining, expanded with time, as did the company. And so, growing with time, what were some of the activities that changed for you day to day, and how did your role change with them?
Yeah, so that I kind of isolate that software as like one thing in the short-term rental industry that I've been able to do. What it actually led to for me, though, was the purchase of our first property, and we did that kind of outside of the software. The software, gave me some of the learning and the knowledge, and got to really understand the industry there. But we bought our first rental about 6 months into that project, and somehow we found a capital partner that was willing to put all the money down. And I don't know why he said yes to a bozo like me, but he did. And we still have that property today, and it's going pretty good. And that was our first taste into like operations. And so scaling in the industry, that was really, maybe a pivotal step for us, is getting that first one. And there's a lot of people people go to long-term because they really don't like to do some of the operations. They don't like to be a landlord. They don't want to have to deal with the issues. I don't know why, but I just really like solving the problems. And you get a lot of them in the short-term rental space because it's a lot of turnover, a lot of guests, a lot of wear and tear on the property. So we learned when we got that first rental how much we actually like to operate and actually like to kind of deal with guests and some of the things that other people, it's a nightmare for them. For us, we get some kind of weird pleasure out of solving their problems and giving them a good guest experience. And, you do have your occasional nightmare guest, and unavoidable, but we really like it.
The thing that I've found about Airbnb, I've said this before, is one of the hallmark traits of being an Airbnb host is loving to host people. And people, I've only heard this said once before, and I don't remember which guest who gave me this advice, but one of the guests said, if you want to be good at Airbnb, you need to be good at hosting people, and you need to like to host people.
Yeah.
And so it sounds like, in a way, that this was within your wheelhouse, and it was something that you enjoyed thoroughly.
If you're a new or newer real estate investor looking to launch or grow your real estate investing business, please check out Investor Fuel Club. It's a coaching community, but unlike anything you've ever seen before. And you can actually partner with members of our mastermind from coast to coast on deals right in your market. There's no better opportunity to build a consistent business than to literally partner with pros to help you avoid costly mistakes, avoid the need for capital to do deals, and help you eliminate your fears as you're starting your business. Learn more about Investor Fuel Club at investorfuel.com/club.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. You definitely need to not hate hosting people. If dealing with people is something that you don't enjoy, Airbnb may not be for you. And there are ways to scale and to hire VAs, and you can do some of those automations. And it's almost necessary as you grow. But to start, you really kind of have to have a knack or a desire to, because that is what it is. It's hosting. So you have to have the ability to get through that and deal with some of the problems. I think a thick skin helps. Separating it and thinking of it as like a business is really helpful to me. I can deal with a messy guest because to me they may be presenting problems. It may be a problem for me, but in any industry, you're going to have some of those things happen.
No doubt.
So that's helpful, I think, in the process as well.
Now, let's do a little bit of a dive here, Brendan, into Airbnb strategy, right? So
Sure.
Going from inception to how you acquire these deals to how you get them ready for the Airbnb themselves, to maintenance, to pricing. Yeah. Let's do a little bit of a dive here. So current day, bring us up to speed. You're still active in the Airbnb space. When you're looking for these deals, how are you finding them?
This might be a cop-out, but it feels a little bit like God brings them to us, because we have had a fortunate experience, and it's certainly not a replicable experience, but we have had referrals from nearly all of our clients bringing other clients. And we started, my background working in the missions world with churches is I just have a large network. And if you don't know this, missionaries generally leave the country. So they have homes that they don't want to get rid of because they want to keep equity and keep building wealth, but they also don't know what to do with that house. And because of my ties into that industry, we've had people just reach out just because they know about what we're doing. And so we haven't worked too hard or been too proactive as we're scaling up over the last 14 months. As we started our management side, we haven't had to work too hard to get our first initial clients. So I know that's not a replicable thing for others. It's just how it happened for us. And I would be lying if I were to tell you otherwise, but we do have processes for, how we're trying to assess the kinds of properties and get in clients that we want to take on, and kind of really what we're looking for. But in terms of marketing, we haven't had to do a ton. So we've gone from, my one property that I had, my business partner has one as well. So 2 between us to now over 27 units in the span of about 14 months.
I don't pretend to know the inner workings of the Almighty, but I will say that networking and having focused intent and strategic relationships tends to be utilized and helpful over the long term in ways that you cannot foresee at the time. So in acquiring these 27, walk us through one, for instance, just anyone maybe recently. Was it one of the sellers said, hey, I know this person and they're looking to sell their home quickly? Was it a situation like that? How do one of these deals come about?
Yeah. So for some of our clients, we manage the property for them. They keep the home. And then for others, we've been able to kind of find a deal to, acquire it ourselves. So just as an example, we had one property that I was just looking on Zillow. This is when we first started working together with my business partner. And one of the things I noticed was that the seller was somebody that I actually knew. And that was a crazy thing, because I was just looking, and I was obviously using the mobile app that we helped create to do the underwriting. And I said, oh, I know this person. And so I still had their number in my cell. And so I texted them and said, hey, the crazy thing, I've been looking at properties in this area and I saw your property. Are you still selling it? And she's like, yeah, it's still listed. That's crazy. We should meet up. So my wife and I drove out. This is in the hill country in Texas, and we went and visited the property, and much jaw on the floor. It's just a beautiful 3.5 acre property with a house right there. Two sheds on the property that I knew instantly I'd be converting those into some ADUs that we would run as short-term rentals as well, and ample room to kind of grow and do some other things as well. And that's how we got the first one and she owned it outright. And so we ended up, because of the personal relationship, and she owned it outright, we were able to work out some seller finance terms that were very favorable for us, but also helped her. There were some things that she was trying to do in her own life. And so, it's just when two people come together in good faith, I love that. Like, those are the best kind of deals, because you're trying to kind of outdo one another and like kind of showing honor to them. And that's a glorious thing, I think. And it's really enjoyable to do a real estate transaction like that. They're not always like that. Sometimes they're cutthroat and you're just trying to get down to the wire. But this one in particular, that's how we found it. And we found it, I think it was November 17th. We closed December 17th. After a few visits, and we had it listed for short-term rental rent on January 1. So,
Wow.
Pretty wild turnaround.
3-month turnaround.
Yeah, pretty quick. So
okay, so would you say that's typical, or a lot of them a heavy rehab, or some of them a heavy rehab?
Not a lot of rehabs. We obviously have to go and furnish. This is a big thing in the short-term rental world, is people don't know how much amenities in your furniture impacts your ROI. So that's part of the analysis that we'll do. So there was one property, this is a little non-traditional, but the homeowner, he wanted us to manage for him. And we said, okay, well, what kind of investment are you making in the furniture and the amenities? And he said, well, I don't have that much money. And we said, well, why don't we do this instead? Do you want to sell it to us? And he was not ready to sell it. So we said, well, we still think this one will cash flow. So how about this? What if we rent it from you with a long-term lease? You let us furnish it, and we'll be your tenants, and we'll put it on Airbnb. And he said, well, that I can accept. So for him, he saw this as a monthly paycheck to keep their home. We saw it as an opportunity to build cash flow. And he is one of those guys that he's really interested to get into the short-term rental world. And so our expectation is that in about a year, we'll be able to talk with him about, potentially buying a property alongside him and continuing to grow our property management alongside him, with him as our financial partner.
Brendan, that strategy is utterly genius. You said that so nonchalantly, but I'm over here taking notes. Of course, I have my show notes over here, but I, for some reason, wrote your name down again and triple underlined it, because you came up with a real estate strategy here for us. So people who you're approaching them, we'll get into how you met that gentleman, but approaching him, talking about putting the home onto Airbnb directly, maybe some type of service fee that you would charge or something along these lines. He wasn't interested in that. Instead, you rented out the home and then had in the agreement that you could effectively, sublet it out short term, which in many cases you can't do. But if you specifically say that, hey, I'm going to do this, you can do it. So it's almost like a way easier way to acquire something subject to without any of the risk, because you're renting. So you can.
That's right. Yeah, it's in the short-term rental world, they call it arbitrage. So you get a long-term lease, and then you arbitrage the difference between what you make short-term, what you make long-term, or what you're paying in your long-term lease. So there's a lot of people that do rental arbitrage, but this asset itself, the house, was so good we couldn't pass it up. We typically would prefer to earn the equity, but we couldn't pass it up because the cash flow was so good. I think we're projecting to see all of our capital we put in the furniture, which that's depreciable assets. Those don't make us anything. So we're projecting though to make all that money back by the end of the year, and we started this one January 1 as well. So
rental arbitrage.
Yeah.
We could dive into that. God bless. That's awesome.
It's a great way to build cash flow. And when we coach people, some of the things we tell them is like, look, if you don't have cash flow, one of the best things you can do to get started is start co-hosting or property managing for people. Because you can be a co-host on their property, do all the things they don't want to do, deal with the guests, schedule the maintenance, and get paid, and it's risk-free. You're not building equity though. And the next step is, potentially to do something like a rental arbitrage, because now you remove the owner. You don't have like a lot of red tape there. Once you get the lease signed, you can pretty much do what you want, and you can increase your cash flow. But the ultimate goal is to, as you're building that cash flow, reinvest that into assets that you own so that you can build equity over time. And then you're going to learn a lot along the way. So you'll probably be a really good operator by the time you start investing in your own. So if I was meeting with somebody that had no money to invest, that'd be one potential strategy I would talk with them about.
Wow. Gold nuggets here. Gold nuggets. So catching us up, and we hit on this a little bit before talking about where you're at today. But day to day today, it sounds like you have, these 27
right.
rental properties scattered. Are they all in Texas?
Not all of them. We've got some in Tennessee.
Okay.
But one in Punta Cana in the Dominican. That one was a
Entonces
outlier.
hablas un poco español o no?
Sí, hablo español porque yo era maestro de español. Pero
Oh,
hace
estás un
como,
maestro, eres un maestro de español.
sí, pero hace como 10 años, 20 años. So it's been a while.
Okay.
But I was a Spanish teacher for quite a long time.
Where did you teach Spanish?
Right here in Houston, Texas. So
No kidding.
I did some traveling when I was in college, and I came back thinking, man, I don't know what I was thinking, but I said, I'm going to become a Spanish major because all the countries I visited to were Spanish speaking.
Yeah.
And got out of school, and I spent a year teaching Spanish to kids like I was, like I was in high school, and not my cup of tea. It's for some people, was not for me.
Yeah, I could never be a teacher. It's very, very difficult, I think. And I have the utmost respect for everybody who does any type of teaching, specifically in the public schools. God bless all those people. But Punta Cana, okay, so I actually love the Dominican Republic. We could talk a whole podcast about this. But
wow.
I've been to Santo Domingo and Santo Domingo Este 5 times in the last 14 months. I intend to move there, actually.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, so that's how I learned Spanish. I went there. I of course have heard Spanish. I'm in the United States, so you hear Spanish. Grew up on the East Coast. Had never been to a place where they do. Punta Cana is a little different. You got Americans over there, people. Santo Domingo, when I touched down there, Brendan, when I tell you there was no English happening, there was no English happening. Like, it was amazing.
Yeah.
So I get over there, phone doesn't work, no, the internet's right. And so I go to the rental car place. I'm realizing they don't speak any English at all. Like, I call my bank. Bank's like, you didn't tell us. I was so unprepared. So unprepared. But guess
Those are
what?
the best memories, though.
I had to learn Spanish at that point. Like, your brain, I feel like this is so true. Your brain is tricking you into thinking that it can't learn it. Because when you're forced to, Brendan, that week I learned so much Spanish in that couple of days that I was there. It was unbelievable.
Yeah. It kind of forces you to do it, and it is wild what your brain can do whenever you have to.
I would love to have you back on to just talk about some of those properties that you got. You mentioned Tennessee, Punta Cana.
Yeah.
But we are coming up on time here. As much as I would love to chew your ear off about all those topics, where can folks go to get a hold of you?
Yeah, if they need to find me, we do have a website. It's oikospropertyventures.com, and I know it's a weird name, oikos, like the yogurt, OIKOS. It's the Greek word for home. And what we try to do is manage our properties in a way that they feel like home for folks. And, so we're not just a management company. We do some coaching and consulting a lot of times on the underwriting side. And we, of course, do, investing as well. So kind of all over the place. But if it's short-term rentals, we're doing it. This is pretty much what I'm trying to tell you.
Brendan, thank you so much for coming on the show. I really enjoyed this podcast. Thank you so much for coming on.
Thanks for having me, Dylan.
Thanks for joining us for today's Real Estate Pros Show. You can learn more about the amazing benefits of the Investor Fuel Mastermind community, including surrounding yourself with hundreds of other rock stars, 100% financing for your deals, and members-only discounts from vendors you're likely already using that, as a member of Investor Fuel, will save you more than the cost of your membership. Visit investorfuel.com to learn more. If you're interested in joining us as a guest of this show, please visit investorfuel.com/pros to apply. You can also check the show notes for access to free resources, how to get access to world-class lead generation, and much more. Don't forget to subscribe so you never miss another episode. Have a great day. We'll see you on the next show.